everyone, and welcome back to the Own Your Career Path to Project Management podcast. And today we're going to be talking about what counts as project management experience and what is just resume filler fluff. I see in my clients all the time them questioning their experience. They give all of these reasonings why their experience isn't project management experience. And I see them talking themselves out of positioning themselves. And it's almost like they're keeping themselves small to avoid disappointment if the pivot doesn't happen immediately. And this really ends up affecting them emotionally. They start to feel like imposters, they start to feel unqualified, but also somehow knowing deep down that they are qualified. So there's this kind of catch 22 that they're experiencing about feeling qualified, but also feeling like an imposter. And they say things like, I feel like the work I've been doing is project management. But then when I really think about it, and they start to tell themselves this story about why their experience doesn't count as project management experience. And what I do love about this is my clients have a lot of integrity. They don't want to lie. They don't want to make up a story. They don't want to present a false narrative. However, misdirected integrity can really do a lot more harm than good. This is about positioning. It's not about making things up. It's not about fluff. It's not about keyword stuffing. It's not about resume filtering or resume fluffing. This is about strategic positioning and using the experience you already have that already exists to position yourself as a project manager. So in this episode, you're going to walk away with a better understanding of what counts as project management experience, where to draw the line between project management and operations, and how to think about your experience as project management experience. So if you are an experienced professional who's hit a career ceiling, whether that's salary, seniority, or just satisfaction, and you are looking to pivot into project management, this episode is for you. It's going to come with full throttle examples across industries of people that I have seen translate their experience, their existing experience, into project management experience. And before we go any further, I want to know, what experience do you think you have that deep down you're saying to yourself, this feels like project management experience? But then you stop yourself from framing it this way. So comment below your experience and what makes you think it might not be project management experience. I would love to hear from you. So here's what I think is happening in people who are talking themselves out of their experience being project management experience. I think one of the big problems here is that people don't really think deeply about the definition of a project. They study project management, they might be studying for their PMP, they might kind of conceptually understand what project management is, but they don't necessarily stop and step back and think about what is a project. And really all it is it's something that had a start date and an end date, and it resulted in something unique. That is it. And when you think about it that way, you really start to realize that organizations are run on projects. Now, that start and stop date and the uniqueness of the result, those are important, because if it's something that is ongoing and it's something that just keeps the lights on and happens every single day, every week, every month, that is operations. That is just keeping the lights on. So an example of this is operations would be onboarding new clients. That happens the same way consistently every single time. A project would be streamlining the client onboarding process. Do you see the distinction there? There is a difference in something that happens every single day versus something that is still embedded in something that happens every single day, but it creates something unique. You've gone from a clunky onboarding process to a streamlined process that maybe increases customer satisfaction or allows you to onboard customers faster, or any number of things. So there's a little bit of a nuanced difference there. And I just wanted to explain that because I think people often think a lot of what they are doing is operations, and it is not. And I'm going to go into more detail with examples in just a second. I think the other thing I see in individuals who are talking themselves out of having project management experience is they think, well, I need to have led a large team. I think they're thinking about, I need a team of 20 or 30 people, or maybe just 10, like a dozen, something like that. But if they didn't have a formal project team, and if there weren't a ton of people involved, I think that they start to think, well, that wasn't a project. And the thing is, if you look at the definition of a project, first of all, it says nothing about the team size. Now, doing a project and being a project manager, yes, are slightly different. The word manage is in project manager. And not only are you managing the process and you're managing the tools, but yes, you are managing people. But a team is simply more than one person. And a team does not have to be the same, it doesn't have to be organizational chart team. It doesn't have to be people who you all sit under the same manager and you're doing the same things. No, this is why in project management, there's such an emphasis on cross-functional team leadership, because a team comes from all different functions. It comes from all different levels of an organization. And these people often do not sit on your org chart. So if you worked with one or more people on an initiative, it stopped, something unique, that counts as a project. And if you worked to make sure that things got done and that people were accountable and that milestones were hit, and I don't mean milestones as in there's a formal milestone on a Gantt chart somewhere, just we got this done, and then we got this done, and then we got this done. Those are milestones. So if you made sure those things happened, that is project management. The next one that I think is very interesting, it's kind of the inverse of this. People think, well, I didn't lead a team. They also think, well, I didn't do this, the team did it. And because of that, they're very hesitant to claim the experience as theirs, which, if you are thinking that, that is even more indicative that you did project management work. Because as a project manager, you don't actually do a lot of the work. The work is getting other people to do the work. Now, as a project manager myself, I spend time doing the work. I'm not going to lie. And I think that happens in most organizations that aren't incredibly mature with project management. As a project manager, you are tasked with being a good steward of the project, which means getting it done on time, on budget, and within the designed scope and requirements. And with that in mind, sometimes I just have to do some of the work, and that is okay. But if you haven't done any of the work and you're still making sure that other people are getting it done, that is textbook project management. So when people say, well, I didn't do it, the team did, exactly. That's the point. The next thing I see when people are sort of discounting their own experience is, well, I didn't use a Gantt chart, or I didn't create an official communication plan. Basically, I didn't use the tech side of the skills of project management, the technical side of project management. And guess what? Most days, neither do I. As a senior project manager who runs multi-million-dollar client accounts, I massively don't use these things, because project management is no longer about communication plans, about Gantt charts, about timelines and milestones. It's more about just getting things done, motivating people to get things done, removing blockers, actually facilitating the communications. It's about movement, not about the technical skills behind project management. So if you didn't create an official project charter, or if you didn't have an official sign off, or you didn't do a lessons learned, or any of these other things that they talk about in project management, that does not mean that you didn't do project management work. So, if you are listening to this and you're starting to realize, oh my gosh, yes, I do more project management work than I was giving myself credit for, here is a simple framework that you can follow to help pull out your project management experience. First, I want you to identify the things that truly fall into the definition of a project. It started, it stopped, and it resulted in something unique. That's it. First step, just start writing things down. 5 words or less. That's it. Like brain dump, create a list very, very fast. Do not overthink it. You can always go through later and scratch things out. That is fine. But at first, just write everything down, put it out there, and then we can go back and exit out. The next thing that I would love for you to do, the next part of this framework, is to change the language within these things from doer to leader. We want to move from words like created, made, wrote, things like that. We want to change those to words like led, managed, organized, executed. Just those little swaps in those verbs make a huge difference, and they move you from a doer to a project leader. And then the third step within this framework is to simply demonstrate value. Now, I know people really, really struggle with this because often there is not a truly demonstrable value. There wasn't necessarily, oh, yeah, it clearly brought in 50,000 more dollars every month, or it clearly saved X amount of dollars, or there was a 25% increase in client satisfaction. Those things often don't get measured. And when they don't get measured, people have a very hard time actually demonstrating the value. So, what I tell my clients is to guess with integrity and work backwards. So, if you think that something that you did saved 20 hours per month in rework, then figure out, what are those 20 hours worth? Was it 20 hours for one person? What would that person's salary have been? Extrapolate into the future how many months that would be. And when you start thinking about it that way, all of a sudden you have numbers. These are things that when you step back and work backwards, you can really start to see the value. And when I say guess with integrity, I truly mean integrity. Okay. Don't sit there and say you saved the company $20 million when you know deep down in your gut that there's no way that's true. All right. You know, as high performers, you know what truth feels like versus what stretching feels like. So if there is any feeling in your stomach that, you know what, that might be a little bit of an exaggeration, then just bump it down a notch. That is okay. And if you need to talk it through with someone, maybe a coworker of yours or a mentor, then do that. But being able to demonstrate value within a project as a project manager, that is what projects are all about. That is why organizations do projects, to demonstrate or to create value. Otherwise, what's the point? What's the point of doing it? So now I'm going to switch gears and I'm going to give you some examples from industries that I worked with my clients to translate into project management experience. So the first one that I want to talk about is someone who came to me from a television production background. I'm talking 30 years of television production background. Someone who deeply invested in their career and was very passionate about what they did. And at the same time, the television industry is unfortunately starting to crumble. In the age of streaming and in the age of, we need things fast, the television industry is suffering. And this person that I worked with was intelligent enough to see it coming and to know, it's time. It's time to make a change. I've done this. I've been here for 30 years. It's been fulfilling. I have invested a lot of time in it, but he also knew that it was time to make a change. It was in his best interest because he could stay and he could cling on to the television industry and go with the ship as it goes down, or he could grab a life raft and make a pivot into project management and use his experience as that life raft. So this person was, oh my gosh, he was running entire seasons of shows, repeat seasons of very, very well known shows that I'm sure a lot of you listening have heard of. He was managing massive broadcasts, immense budgets, like millions of dollars in budgets. And the amazing thing is that he could not see the project management experience that he had. He just couldn't see it. He was such a high performer, doing so much and was so deeply in the jar that he could not read his own label. And it came down to us just having a conversation around what is the definition of a project? It started, it stopped, and it had a unique result. And every single season, every single episode of these shows was a project in and of itself. And in that way, because he ran multiple episodes within a season and then multiple seasons, that is program management. He's managing all these different pieces for a unique value outcome. And we can talk about program management at another time, but basically program management is managing multiple projects so that you can achieve unique benefits that will benefit the organization. So in his example, it was doing all of these shows and doing season over season. And he did multiple different shows as well. Now, the next thing that we did was define the budgets. And when we stepped back and we started talking about what were the resources that he had to run this project, we started seeing multi-million-dollar budgets. We also targeted these specific projects because they had a very specific scope, right? They had a number of episodes, they had a specific story arc, they had specific deliverables associated with each episode, which is again very indicative of a project. And then also this concept of cross-functional collaboration. He was dealing with writers, directors, editors, the talent, network executives, so many people that he had to orchestrate and make sure that they were working together and that these shows got put out on time, on budget, and that they were successful and that they were in line with the vision of the production executives. And the final thing that we really talked about with identifying these things as projects was the unique output. That particular episode, that season, will never be replicated again. It was a unique story. It was often unique cast. And with that in mind, that counts as a project. So when we sat back and we really looked at all of this and I pointed these things out to him, it clicked. It clicked for him that he had been doing project management at a massive scale for his entire career. And he recognized, oh my gosh, I am not starting over. I am just starting to see my experience through a different lens. The next example I want to talk about is someone who had been running movie theaters for over 15 years. And he had been doing, oh my gosh, he came to me and he had that deep feeling of, hey, I think I've been doing project management. He had his PMP, so he knew it was blessed by PMI that he was doing project management, but he was having a hard time getting traction. But when we sat back and we really looked at his experience through the lens of project management, we started to see a few things. We started to see that he was, first of all, overseeing mergers and acquisitions. Massive. He was just seeing it as, oh, I did some things to make sure that the sale of the theater went through. That is a merger. That's an acquisition. Someone purchased this theater from somebody else. It's a merger and an acquisition. He was also doing things like overseeing software implementation, but again, because he was so in the jar, he was labeling it as just something I had to get done. It was just part of the day to day. But start date, end date, unique outcome. That is a project. When we put labels on these things and kind of zoomed out and compared them to what a project actually is, we started realizing that he was delivering projects worth 7 figures. I had another client who had a background as a band manager. Again, he was really passionate about the music industry. It was something that was near and dear to him. It was something that he had been doing for 15, 20 years and just was really passionate about it. And then he kind of got stuck in the marketing aspect of it. And he started to feel like he hated his job because he wanted to be creative, not stuck selling stuff. And he really ended up feeling betrayed by his industry. It was something that he loved. He went into it because it gave him fulfillment. And then I remember him telling me, it feels like I've been stabbed in the back by this thing that I loved. And it's allowed my career to drift into this place that I did not want it to drift. And he was really struggling because he did not see his experience as project management experience. So when we stepped back and we looked at his experience, we started to reframe him as a creative project manager. These were things he was managing projects in the form of an album launch, an artist tour, a press release, a brand partnership. All of these things had a start date, an end date, and a unique result. And he had to stay within budget on some of these things, on all of these things. And he was dealing with teams on all of these things. He was dealing with artists, the people who were managing the venues, the people who were creating the merch, all of these people. He was driving these initiatives and moving them forward and did not realize that it was a project. Now, the first position as a PM, the first formal position that he landed was as a senior project manager. And mind you, he did not have his PMP. This was all about recognizing his existing experience and reframing it as project management experience. The last one I'm going to talk about is someone with a military background. He was an ex-Marine. And when he got out of the service, he found himself stuck in parking operations for, I believe, 10 years, 5 to 10 years, something like that. And when he came to me, he had hit a ceiling professionally and in terms of salary. And again, he just experienced career drift. He kind of woke up and found himself in this place with no career, no direction. And he wanted to change that. To him, when we were looking at his experience, he was thinking, well, I was just running the day to day. I was making sure that the people I worked with got the support that they needed to be successful. And I was just doing my job. I think a lot of high performers think that I was just doing my job. So when we stepped back and we looked at this, again, we found massive projects in his experience. One of them was that he helped launch a $400 million project for a parking structure. And he was dismissing it as, well, I was only responsible for one part of it. And I said, to him, if that part hadn't gotten done, would this project have been successful? And he said, no. So, without his guidance, that project would have failed completely. He was a component project manager. He was managing one of the projects within this larger program that would have failed if his component had failed. He also had created a centralized training platform for his team to streamline onboarding. Now, when I was talking about that example earlier of operations versus project management, operations is onboarding. Creating a centralized platform for your team to do their onboarding, to access training and onboarding materials, that is a project. Start date, end date, unique result. And when he landed his first project manager position, he landed as a project manager 3. And I know the numbers can be kind of confusing, but a PM 3, that is not entry level. That is mid to senior level. So I just gave you 4 examples of people from wildly different backgrounds. We have television production, we have someone running movie theaters, we have a band manager, we have ex-military. There's so much experience in here, but all of them had one thing in common, and that was they were running these initiatives that started and ended and had a unique result. So, if you are ready to figure out exactly what experience you have that is actually hidden project manager experience, that is what my PM Path diagnostic is for. This is a call during which we will take a closer look at your project management readiness iron triangle to identify which arm is limiting traction. Then we'll figure out how the current imbalance is affecting your results. And then we will map a clear strategic path to strengthen the right areas and move you forwards towards your goal. So you can book that today if you are ready to move into project management. Go to KaylaQCareercoaching.com/diagnose. That's Kayla, Kayla, Q as in queen, careercoaching.com/diagnose. The link is in the show notes. If you got value from this episode, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.